daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Newcastle. Proud to be part of the Global Sports Podcast Network and giving an immediate post-game reaction to Newcastle 1, Barcelona 2. So today's soccer chat is going to be, we can't help ourselves but be a little bit glum. And I'm saying ourselves because I'm not solo tonight. I'm joined by my good friend Michael Grahamslaw, who sat in his home and watched the match as well. Michael, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. I will be honest, I'm better than what I probably should be, given the result. But not every day you play Barcelona. So yeah, coming out with smiles.
That's true. That is true. So yes, Newcastle have lost 2-1, having flattered to deceive a little bit in the first half. We probably had the best of the chances. Could have been ahead, maybe. But then Michael's nemesis, Marcus Rashford, plucked two bits of his best efforts ever to put Barcelona 2 up with 20 minutes to go, and it looked very tough. And although we got a goal back with the 7 minutes of injury time left, we never really looked like getting anything out of it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit talking about that. I was quite interested in the changes that Eddie Howe had made from a winning side that had beaten Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0 last Saturday. Two changes, Michael. Alanga in for Murphy and Gordon in at centre forward instead of Volta Marda. How do you think those two changes went?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where, firstly, looking at Alanga for Murphy, it's hard to take Jacob Murphy out the equation when he was so good against Wolves, or at least when he put that one good cross in. But Alanga was absolutely fantastic. I thought you knew how we were going to play. We were going to play on the break with a high press at the same time, try and force them into mistakes and hit them with pace and power. And Alanga's the best player to do that. And then Anthony Gordon up top as well. Volta Marda, fantastic player by the looks of things. But when you've got a 6'6" player up there who gets cramped quite quickly because he isn't used to how we play, it's going to be a high intensity game. It just made sense to have Gordon in there as well. What I maybe would have liked to have seen, because Harvey Barnes hasn't been great for Newcastle, and we'll get to his performance today, was be Gordon on the left, Alanga through the middle, and then Jacob Murphy on the right-hand side, because I would have loved to have seen Jacob Murphy putting the ball in behind for Gordon and Alanga. But Eddie Howe knows better than me. Gordon's probably better than Alanga through the centre, and we did have some good chances, so I think it did pay off.
We did. I think we went for pace, speed, more speed, because we know the high line that Barcelona were going to play with, and that gives us a lot of space to run into. And actually, there were several occasions where Alanga was so rapid that he did get in behind. One cross that he cut back for Anthony Gordon to hurdle rather than bury in the bottom corner, which was a shame. And a fabulous early cross to the back post, which unfortunately Harvey Barnes hit so truly he just effectively played a back pass to the goalkeeper. I mean, if he could have just hit that off his heel and it had gone into the ground, it would have bounced over him, another goal. But Alanga was a real threat, and that pace was an excellent weapon that almost paid dividends. One thing I noticed in the first half, Michael, is Alanga is so rapid that he's too fast even for Sandro Tonali to keep up with. Several times he'd made his run for a ball through for him to run onto, and then had to check himself because otherwise he would have gone offside whilst waiting for Bruno and Tonali to actually slip the ball through to him.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I think when they get 2 months, 3 months training with each other instead of 2 or 3 weeks, that sort of thing will be ironed out. And I think we've got a super potent weapon there.
100%, yeah.
Definitely justified, quite a controversial decision, I think, to leave Murphy out and bring Alanga in. I quite like Gordon down the middle. I think he's really busy. He's the only one I've seen that can press the two fullbacks and the goalkeeper as he's crossing the pitch. I mean, he's like a terrier with a bone, isn't he? He just won't let go. And his pace is a weapon. won a few fouls to get us into some dangerous positions, but and I know he scores the goal right at the end from his left wing position. But
Yeah.
there was that cut back which he stepped over instead of hitting was just so frustrating.
Yeah, 100%. It was one of those where it was the first moment of the game where you were thinking, wow, we actually could get something here, because it felt like such an easy chance for us to create. We just got it to Alanga. He beat his man with ease, which is what we've seen so many times already with Anthony Alanga. It does seem to just be with ease that he beats his man. But it's something we've seen quite a lot from Gordon. That initial reaction of just get your foot through the ball that a lot of strikers do have. A lot of players not in that position don't really have those instincts. I think of
Mm.
Johan Wissa. Me and you were speaking before the pod, and you mentioned Wissa. Would it have been different? He's the kind of player that would have those instincts to already have his foot basically where that ball is going to go, so he can divert it. Anthony Gordon just steps over it a little bit. Instincts of a winger, really. Ball gets to him, and then it's always going to be beat the man. Hitting it first time, it's not what a winger usually does. So, as much as, it's not great for Gordon, the fact that it happened, I think you mentioned the goal at the end there as well. That's what happens when Gordon's on the left wing. He can score goals and he can put in performances. Now, I'll say, when he was running at Jules Koundé at the end of the game, I was very frustrated because he never beat him. But Barnes didn't really beat him throughout the entire game, really. But it just shows you what we can do on the break with Anthony Gordon on the left, Jacob Murphy on the right, and then maybe a pacier striker through the middle.
Yeah, well, we were talking, and I suggested that if Wissa had been fit and available, he would have played tonight, the centre forward.
Yeah, 100%.
Newcastle probably two up at half time, because we think he would have buried that chance that Gordon missed, and probably would have certainly made the goalkeeper work a lot harder than the Barnes chance that was saved. But he was injured, so we couldn't do that. And I don't know. I'd like to maybe Alanga could go through the middle, but I think if Howe has decided that Barnes is playing on the left, I'd rather see Gordon through the middle rather than him play down the right.
Yeah.
Now, from the ground, Joanne has been quite vigorous in her texting to us that he picked the wrong team. She's convinced that Volta Marda should have started at centre forward, but I don't think she's got a lot of support from the rest of us. Do you want
No.
to do you want to say why we don't think Volta Marda would have been any better than Gordon centre forward?
Well, to not list the reasons that you and Kev have already sort of gone through, the main one for me is the counter-attacking style of play, the pressing we had at the start. All of our chances early on come from either fast breaks or high pressing. And I don't think we're capable of doing either of those with a 6'6" centre forward who, let's be honest, if you watch the second half, his movement isn't great when we're driving forward. He's always sort of hanging off a little bit like a number 10,
He does.
which it's one of those things where, that's one of the things mentioned. He's not potentially a natural number 9. He does like to sit a little bit deeper. And if you're hitting on the break with pace, you just need players who are willing to get in behind the man. I hate to say it, but Isak, that's something he did brilliantly for us. And Johan Wissa, that is something that he will do brilliantly for us. But when you're trying to play on the counter attack, I think it is just not. It's not Volta Marder's day. When that's the thing with Bournemouth as well, we'll probably play a similar way, and I'm not sure. Well, Volta Marder will have to start because Gordon is banned, but I'm not sure it'll work out that well. But that's a issue for another podcast.
We'll have to see. We'll have to talk about Bournemouth tomorrow, probably. Um, yeah. So I was going to say something very interesting there about Voltimada, and it's gone out of my head, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? Oh no! The other thing is, of course, and you've just got to catch yourself that Voltimada's had such a meteoric rise. I know he's player of the tournament for the England for the under-21 Euros,
Yeah,
but he'd never played in European football before. I don't just mean he's never played in the Champions League. He's never played in the Europa League. He's never played in the Conference League. So
yeah.
massive first European game for him to start centre forward for Newcastle in front of those 52,000 baying for blood from the first to second. I agree with Howe's decision. I thought the two changes he made worked out really well
Yeah,
in
I agree.
relation to not working out very well. And once we have heard from Ken from Bioniq, we'll talk about his changes in the second half, which I think didn't work out quite so well.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
And we're back for part two. Sorry about the extra sting in there, Michael. It's the closest I get ever to being like a DJ. Mixing. Wow, 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 wow. Yes,
See,
part two.
it's for me, it's like music class all over again. You got the keyboard, you got dictionary, come on, and you got jingle bells and all that. You can just randomly play. It takes me back. So never apologize for doing that.
I have no idea what you're talking about because when I was at school, there was no such thing as digital. It's all analog. No buttons to click to get all sorts of this stuff. I'm kind of guessing I know what you're talking about, but anyway. It's 0-0 at half time. I think Newcastle had the only shot on target, but Barcelona had a few shots, but at distance. I don't think Pope had to make a save. None of them on target. No. Quite exciting going into the second half. We started reasonably well, I think. We were trying to start like the house on fire that we had done in the first half. I can't remember if we then made the changes, didn't we, before Barcelona scored their first goal?
No, we made the changes about 5 minutes afterwards.
Did we? Right. So
yeah.
Barcelona score a goal. Fabshar just beforehand had been kind of knocked out with a ball to the face.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there was still a bit of an effect of that because he did go off from the effects of that. But 5 minutes after he managed to come back onto the pitch from that, it's him who has just backed off and gives Rashford an extra half yard, maybe a yard, to be able to step forward and have a free header effectively, which he took very, very well into the bottom corner. Pope had no chance whatsoever. And that's when we do our changes, or do they get the second one before we're putting them on?
No. So we make our changes just after the first goal, but I do just want to note, you mentioned there, we had our medical team come on and they said that Fabian Schär was okay to continue. Now, if you watch Fabian Schär's performance throughout the entire game, he is aggressive, on the front foot, and always going towards the ball. That is the first moment in the game he takes a step back instead of attacking the ball. And I think that's more just muscle memory because he's probably concussed. But it's one of those where I'm not saying the medical team cost us there. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think maybe we should have sat down and just gone, look, he's got a head injury. Let's just get him off and get him replaced and not take any risks. Because now the question is there of has that injury cost us?
And he made 4 changes at one go. Some were very good, and it's because we're talking about Schär. I thought Chow came on. He looks really good. He's got
Excellent,
a fantastic touch. He's not somebody who just puts his laces through and boots it up into the opposition half to make sure things are safe. He's doing Cruyff turns and all sorts to be able to stay in control, finding a really good pass. I think he looks a fabulous addition. I want to see a bit more of him, to be honest. However, what I was disappointed to see was that our danger man, Alanga, was taken off and replaced by Jacob Murphy. Nothing against Jacob Murphy. He's a very good player. And in fact, it's him who plays a fantastic early ball across for us to score our goal in the 90th minute. But with Alanga off, we kind of seemed to take our foot off the gas. I mean, we didn't have that pace up front anymore.
Absolutely.
Joe Linton was already booked. Maybe Eddie thought he was going to get another one. I don't know. But Willock coming on for Joe Willock. Sorry, Willock coming on for Joe Linton is a standard sort of a swap, but
Yeah.
one that I was disappointed with again because
You
that's
don't
some of the
like to see
aggression
it,
gone.
really, do you?
No, and which one have I missed? Oh, this is when Barnes comes off.
For Nick
Gordon
Volta
switches
Marder.
to the
Yeah.
left, and Volta Marda comes on to play up front. Um, what did you think? I mean, just do a mini review of those 4 substitute performances.
Yeah, I think Voltimada comes on for Barnes, doesn't really do too much. You can't expect too much of him in a game like that. Joe Willock comes on for Joe Linton. I thought Joe Linton was poor. Joe Willock, probably about the same standard. Malik Chow, as you mentioned, I genuinely thought there was times where we were in the final third, the ball was going to Malik Chow. He was doing little turns, and I was like, we've got the Willock back of 2022-23. And they're like, that's Malik Chow. Wow. That's our centre back doing that. That's brilliant. Yeah, he came on for Fabian Schär. Schär, I wish had gone off 10 minutes earlier just so we didn't have the question of, was it the concussion that's sort of made him step back? He was still excellent throughout the entire game. And then Murphy comes on. I agree, Alanga shouldn't have come off. He was the best player in the first half. He was a bit quieter in the second, but I think you could really see, even before the second goal, the stuffing had kind of been knocked out of us a little bit, and the subs didn't really have the impact that we thought they would.
No, I was hoping because the Barcelona get the right way around. Left back was that Martin that was marking Alanga.
Yes.
He'd already been booked, and he looked like an accident waiting to happen whenever Alanga got a chance to run at him.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so he breathed a huge sigh of relief when Alanga went off, I'm sure. Um, so yes, I agree. Alanga going off was disappointing, although Murphy came on and with Trippier getting bad cramp and having to be replaced by Botman, we reverted to 3 centre halves, and Murphy ended up as a wing back, which was a strange move, I suppose. Needs must if Trippier couldn't continue, because it sort of took the edge off our pacey attack. But I guess that had already been taken off with having Volta Marda sitting up there as well.
Yeah,
I thought Volta Marda
100%.
showed some good touches. He
I
certainly
agree.
has a really nice little layoff in the middle of that really super slick move that ends up in the goal.
Yeah,
He's in there laying a nice ball off. Um, Chow was brilliant. Murphy was all right. Willock, to me, I thought there were some flashes there of the way he used to carry the ball forward that looked really encouraging. But once or twice, he was a bit like it's a bit like a comedian who was telling a joke and got to the end, then forgot the punchline because it just petered out and he gave the ball away. I mean,
yeah,
both times he gave the ball away, it was turned over so quickly that Barcelona were really very threatening afterwards. And you can't do that. Bruno started doing that a little bit as well, which is a nasty habit I think he's developing over the last few games of giving a good ball away in silly places. Um, but, we pushed. The crowd went very, very quiet. You could understand that. They'd had the stuffing knocked out of them. And
yeah.
then we scored this fabulous goal, which I'm not going to try and describe how many people were involved in it, but it was all one touch stuff with a lovely ball across, Gordon at the far post. You've got to see it to believe it's Newcastle and not Barcelona that you're watching. But as we talked about it, Barcelona are magnificent, aren't they? They never really looked
Truly.
under any pressure to see out for a 2-1 win. In fact, they
No.
forced a few corners. Pope made one fabulous save from an Olmo shot. So Barcelona really looked more like scoring in injury time than we did.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think, having decided last night that that was a free hit, I think 2-1 is a very respectable scoreline against Barcelona.
Yeah,
Um, and I think we've got a number of very positive things to take out of this game. Certainly looking forward to Bournemouth. And perhaps after we've heard from Bin Dipper Jesse, telling us about Zencastr, we can start picking out some of the positives. Take it away, Jesse. All right.
Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
I'm sorry, but why do why do Liverpool fans never have a Scouse accent?
I don't know. I was going to ask if you thought that actually was Jesse, because I don't recognise that voice. I've been on a podcast with Jesse a few times, but I don't think Scousers go Zencastr, if I'm
No,
honest.
absolutely not.
Anyway, whoever that was, well done. Thank you very much for using the Queen's English and not Scouse to tell us all about Zencastr. So, I think there were a number of positives. I thought Nick Pope was a positive performance, working through the team. He made some good saves. Don't think he had no chance with either of the goals, to be fair.
No.
I thought that Dan Burn was excellent again. I thought Tino was excellent again. Tonali was everywhere. Who else is worth a special mention? Malek Chow coming on. And
Oh.
Sven Botman coming on, actually. Both looked fit. Both looked assured. Both looked confident. They were my highlights. What about you, Michael?
I'm actually going to start with maybe a bit more of a counter argument to Tonali. I thought his passing today was really poor. I thought he was
All
one of
right.
those that was trying. When you can clearly see players are trying to force it, and they think they're trying to do a bit too much. That was Tonali all over for me. I do agree. He was all over the pitch. Defensively, I was very impressed. I thought Tonali and Bruno today showed the reason why they're at Newcastle and not at Barcelona. And I know that's very, very harsh from me, but every time we got the ball, it was, I've got to be quick and I've got to try and get it somewhere. I've got to make it happen myself. While at Barcelona, Pedri, Frankie de Jong, Rafinha, Rashford, all of them just had that bit of quality to go, we're just going to work it together. We're going to get it forward and we're going to do this with pace, precision. They weren't great today. They weren't their usual standards, but I think we nullified them a bit to that. But I think when you look at De Jong and Pedri against Tonali and Bruno, there was levels today, and it's usually what we say the other way whenever we play anyone in the Premier League. So that just tells you how good Pedri and De Jong are.
Well, I agree they were superb, and I know Bruno picked Pedri out as one of the best players in the world, didn't he, in the pre-match chat, and he is. I think you're being harsh on Tonali because I read these stats about it's the creative midfielders who've got the poorer pass completion rates because they're trying something all of the time. Now, is that forcing it just because you're trying to do something? There's a fine line there, and maybe he is guilty of that some of the time. But I think other times you need him to try and do that. So we'll have to agree to differ on Tonali. I thought he was still a great performance from him, still an encouraging performance from him that he was in form, and he kept going right till the end. It's his shot right at the end, which would have, which if it had been 5 yards either side, come through all those legs straight into the goalkeeper's arms, we might have got come out of it with an unlikely 2-2 draw. But yeah, is there stuff there that we could take into Bournemouth? Because obviously Gordon is still suspended for the Bournemouth game. And you'd assume that would mean Volta Marda would start at number 9. But
I think for me,
are there any alternatives to that?
I don't think there's an alternative, but what I think we can see is that Andoni Iraola bases his style of play. He did at Real Vallecano on sort of that tiki-taka Barca, and then going, you know what? We're just going to launch it down to the wings. We can pass it around the back, but we know as soon as those two wingers get the ball forward, get beyond the man, we can launch it. They play more long balls, they're more direct than any other team. And I think we saw that a little bit today with Barcelona as well. You'll notice there's a lot of long passes because they overload the middle of the park, and then a Rashford or a Rafinha will just stay wide, and then all of a sudden the defender's looking over their shoulder and going, "Oh, of course he's there. It's the only place I haven't looked." And it's one of those where Bournemouth do that excellently. Whether it's Semenyo at the minute, it's Tavernier on the other side, formerly of Middlesbrough, surprisingly. But when it was Cliver as well against us, or even Evan Nielsen, or every single one of them was brilliant at that. And it's sort of based on that more direct version of the Spanish sort of tiki-taka, which I think we saw today. There wasn't any just pass, 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 pass without much penetration. It was pass, right, there's someone making a run on the right, let's drive it through.
There were some fabulous long balls. I think that was largely mopped up by Rashford not being very good in the first half and Trippier dealing with him. And Burn and Livramento on the other side being the match of the wingers coming at them. Thank goodness Lamine Yamal wasn't playing, I suppose, because Rafinha was quite quiet. Also, we were wrong, weren't we? Because Lewandowski did start his first game of the season.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
And
I wouldn't be starting someone.
I don't know
for
if he
this
looked unfit or if
game.
he's just looking 36 now. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't have. I mean, I'm not Hansi Flick. He knows a lot more about football than I do, and he sees Lewandowski a lot more than I do. But for me, I don't start a striker in his first game of the season when he's coming back from a bit of an injury against a Newcastle side who you know are going to be putting tackles in left, right, and centre. But I think one of the things that did work quite well for them was that when we hit on the break, they had someone that they could still just launch the ball towards, and he would be able to hold it up well. That which he did very well. That you don't get that with Ferran Torres, although he's brilliant with the ball at his feet. I thought with that though, on Lewandowski, I thought Fabian Schär marshalled him fantastically in that first half. And yes, he is, what did you say, 36, something like that?
36, yeah.
Yeah, so he is getting on, but so is Fabian Schär. And to be able to, keep Lewandowski quiet, it's just a credit to how good our defence can be.
Well, I lived in Poland, you remember?
Yes.
Up to 6 years ago. So that was right when Lewandowski was. I mean, he's still a god there now, isn't he? But he was a real star there, and everybody loved him. I remember him scoring when Poland beat Germany for the very, very first time, and we could hear the cheers coming from the National Stadium 2 miles away because it was Lewandowski. And his wife is a lovely tights and underwear model. She's all over the place.
Right.
There you go. Little insight into one of my.
I did not know that.
Well, what I didn't know, which I heard on the commentary, is Lewandowski's got 105 Champions League goals, third only behind Messi and Ronaldo. I didn't know that, but I mean, he's prolific. He's a prolific.
I think he scored more against English opposition than any other opposition as well. I think that was also said. That might not be 100% true, but I'm pretty sure that's what I'd heard. And Newcastle still hasn't scored against us. So who won really? Huh?
Well, that must be it. The moral victory. On Lewandowski, what was it? Something intervened. He was on his way to Blackburn as a young man.
Really?
And yes, the terms were agreed, and he was on his way. And something happened. Oh, it was the volcano stopped his flight from coming.
The Iceland one.
Yes. So he missed signing for Blackburn. And God, just think if he'd done that, he would have been retired within 18 months.
Yeah, he would have been the new Rocky Santa Cruz.
Instead of which he ended up at, I don't know where he went to. Probably was it Bayern Munich that he scored all those goals for?
Yes.
So I think that was where he ended up going. Instead of Blackburn. So sadly, they still dream of having another Shearer, and it's not him. We're waffling on now, aren't we? So
Speak for yourself.
I'll give Newcastle a 7 out of 10 for the performance. It's a disappointing result. I thought the performance was good. I enjoyed the match. I don't think anyone had a stinker,
No, I would agree.
which is always good. Which is at least 2 players better than all the other games we've watched. And I thought, I think they'll be buoyed by their performance to go into a really tough away game against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Do you take those positives for that game, Michael?
100%. I think anytime you play Barcelona and you're still in it for the last kick of the game, you can take positives from that game. They're a great side. And unfortunately, on this day, Newcastle just didn't take their chances. That's it. We could have scored 3 against Barcelona. Bournemouth, as good as they aren't Barcelona. So if we can score 3, almost score 3 against Barcelona, you'd like to think we can take positives into Bournemouth, who normally batter us.
Well, let's forget that who normally batter us. We'll delete that and just leave the last sentence of the podcast as we could take the positives into the game against Bournemouth on Sunday. Thanks for joining me to look at that, Michael. We're not too down, are we? Even though we've lost our opening game of the Champions League. PSG did that last year and they ended up winning the competition.
Bring it on.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.